or are you gonna stand there, Mayor? I'm just trying to keep everybody safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys, it's 2:29, I'm gonna run up here and hit the record button, because it's so
Okay.
far away. And then
Perfect,
I'll
I'm
let
not
you
making
know
Larry
when it's too
nervous.
far.
I was real always.
Hope we didn't film that.
You're live right now. It just went live, so you've been warned. Did you get your lunch meat the other day? I saw that guy come get your lunch meat, and I was like, I know that's not his lunch meat.
Really, you need to be here.
Hey, and then he didn't think it was his because he stood there and waited for his.
Yeah.
So if he thought it was his, he would have
Very
left.
pleasant.
Yeah.
He got yours, and then he stood there and waited for his.
I got it.
I'm
Yeah,
for
well.
that suggestion.
That's kind of weird, though. I never
Yeah.
tried to steal somebody else's lunch meat. Where are yours? Behind that pillar. Mr. Talley's behind that pillar.
I have 2:30.
Okay, I'll call this meeting of the Park Committee, May 6, 2020 at 2:30 to order. If you would call the roll, Sarah.
Jeff Barrett,
Here.
Larry Klontz,
Here.
Glenda Davis,
Here.
Charles Housewright, Ray Jesse,
Here.
Hannah Speaks, and Donnie Talley.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have 5 members present constituting a quorum.
Next on our agenda, we need to do an organization of the committee. Since we haven't met, it's been approximately a year. Danny Alvis was chairman of this committee. He has since resigned, and I'm now open the floor for nominations for chair of committee.
Nominate Jeff Barrett. I'll second.
Have a nomination for Jeff Barrett and a second. Any other nominations?
Madam Chairman, I would like to nominate you for that position. Also, as chairman.
Are you declining your nomination, Jeff?
No, I won't
Okay.
decline it, but I don't want to be the, I'd rather see a choice.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a nomination for Glenda Davis as chairman. Are there any other nominations? Motion been made that the nomination cease.
I will do a roll call.
Okay, roll, yes, Sarah, if you would do a roll call.
And then you would just say who you would like to have the position. Donnie Talley,
Jeff Barrett.
Ray Jesse,
Jeff Barrett.
Larry Klontz,
Glenda.
Jeff Barrett,
Miss Davis.
and Glenda.
I'm gonna nominate Jeff. No?
No,
Jeff
that's
it.
3 for Jeff
Three for
Barrett,
Jeff.
so Jeff Barrett.
Good work,
So,
Jeff.
if you are the chairman, you've got it.
Thank y'all. I wish you'd have voted the other way there. Anyway, it is what it is. No, thank y'all. Okay, I guess at this time we need to nominate and take nominations for a vice chairman. So I open up the floor for vice chairmen at this time.
Glenda Davis. Second.
Okay, I have a motion for Glenda Davis, I have a second. Is there any other nominations?
Make a motion to cease.
A motion that they be ceased, do I have a second?
Second.
I've got a second, okay. All in favor of Glenda Davis being the vice chairman of the Parks Committee? Vote, Madam Chairman, would you, do a roll call vote on that, please?
Okay. Larry Clance?
Glenda.
Yes. Would be
Yes.
yes. Glenda Davis?
Me,
Yes.
I can abstain, if I don't think I need to vote on myself. I'll
Okay.
abstain.
Ray Jesse?
Glenda, yes.
Donnie Townley?
Yes.
And Jeff Barrett?
Yes, for Ms. Davis.
Okay. We have 4 yeses.
Okay. Okay, I guess the next thing on the list would be, the secretary.
Nominate Larry Clance.
I second that motion.
Okay. Any other nominations?
I decline, the court, Ms. Davis does the recording in minutes, I don't know why I need a secretary.
Well, in the event I wouldn't be here, then you would have to do it, or if they had a meeting at the park and I was unable to attend, they would need a secretary at that point. There needs to be a secretary of record. Do you still wish to decline, or,
Oh, I'll do it.
okay, and we'll have a vote, do you just wanna
Okay.
do a roll call, or do you wanna just,
If everybody's in agreement, we can,
Okay.
do that by acclamation, I guess.
okay?
Okay, so, okay, Vice Chairman Secretary, okay, I guess the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for April the 2nd of 2019.
I passed around, there's a couple of copies up there for you to look at, it has been a while.
Barry, did you see it?
Okay.
Okay, are there any questions on the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as, noted.
Noted, okay. Got a second, okay, Mr. Jesse seconded that, so, all in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as submitted? Okay. Any opposed to that? No, okay. The minutes are approved then. Number 5 on the agenda is the 2020-2021 budget. So we will open up the floor. Is there any questions regarding the budget?
I had, emailed you all a nice spreadsheet with the parks budget on it previously. Today, I have given you a copy of the budget that looks more like what you see in your budget book at the end of the year. It might be easier to read, the spreadsheet might be easier to read. If you don't have any questions, we did have, if you will notice on your budget, we did have I've penciled in addition. Mayor, do you wanna talk about that, or?
Yeah, what we're requesting is the part-time for the park. And the reason for that is we're not getting inmate help up there anymore like we did in the past years. I don't think you've had any at all this year, have you? And maybe once or twice last year was all we got. And, we're running into a problem. The guys are having to work so much and can't take their comp time off, and the comp time's getting out of hand. So the end result's gonna be, we're gonna end up having to close the park down one day a week, or we don't wanna do that. Not at all. So we do need an additional worker up there, but I think Sarah can show you on there where we saved quite a bit of money, so it's, and we continue to do that, but we are in desperate need of some help there.
I have some, photos that I'm gonna pass out. I didn't print photos for everybody, but if you will, I'm gonna start here with Mr. Talley. If you'll just take a look at them. A lot of the photos are for, damage from this, spring rains. We had a bridge that totally collapsed. We had downed trees, we had, bridges that were stopped up with trees, we had, holes in the driveways, in the parking area where the water has rushed through. It's taken a lot of time for these guys by themselves to clean this up.
All this at Laurel Run.
All of this is at Laurel Run. We did have 2 trees down at St. Clair.
Actually had one big
One-
one, yeah,
one
one
big
big
tree.
oak that actually broke a concrete, and I can go into further details on that, I'll make some notes in here if anybody, as I go over it too.
But
These guys are working hard, and they need some help bad.
We've actually had 2 floods, we actually, when we had the first one, we actually got everything repaired, and actually we even had to haul some rock in, because we had like some 3-foot ditches where it run out of haul. And what has happened is, you know, when we had all these mudslides and everything, I think Larry's been there like 19 years. He said water has never, you know, run off like it has. We got that repaired, and then we turned around again, and actually we had pretty much the same damage occur again. We lost some more rocks. So we've had to do a lot of rock hauling and stuff, and whenever I get the change here or whatever, I'll go into details. That's actually what we have done, and what we have had to repair, and how many loads of rock and so forth that we've had to haul in within the last week and stuff.
Now, what's your name?
John Young, sir.
John Young?
Yes.
he's the park supervisor. I'm sorry. Do you all not know John Young, our park supervisor?
Clean those.
I have a question before we vote in this budget.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mr. Cobb.
I can't remember how long ago, I was down St. Clair. It looked bad, hadn't been mowed, bad.
Have you been there lately?
No,
Okay.
I was going to go today and I got a phone call and kept me tied up for about 30 minutes.
I would agree. Actually, where it had been so wet, we had tried, actually, we went down, we've got everything mowed, we've actually mowed it twice. Actually, everything has been sprayed now. We actually had to go down there, there was a tremendous oak tree, it actually had failed. It actually fell down and actually broke the concrete pad at one of the shelters. Actually, we had to form it up and actually reform it. Actually, I sent Larry down there again today. It does need to be, but I'm gonna be quite honest, as much as it is raining, it's just hard for us to keep the mowing up right now, what we're trying to do. While we're trying to, you know, what I'm trying to do is work these other projects in, like where we got the bridges that tore up, our swings got tore up by the floods, and we're just working on, if we get a rainy day, we try to jump on something else other than the mowing, and then we're trying to hit the mowing just as quick as we can. And part of Laurel Run right now, along the river, and it's still standing in the water. We actually have mowed it, we got our lawnmower stuck the other day, and finally just had to pull our lawnmowers out. But we mowed the big bottom, but part of it's still just standing in the water. We can't get a lawnmower in there to it.
How many people you got working for you on a part-time basis?
Actually, me and Larry, and we just had brought on a young boy. He's been there for
A month.
about a month.
He started in April.
Other than that, it was me and Larry.
So technically, you're saying you only have one part-time?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's getting ready to start back at school, so.
and he's getting ready to, he goes back to school here in about two weeks.
So will he continue to be able to work part-time, or will he just go?
As of right now, he should be getting out of school at about 3 o'clock. So he'll be able to be there if things continue on just from 3 till 8, you know, cause we on our 12-hour shifts right now. And what that's allowing me to try to do, I'm trying to that cut back on the comp time where me and Larry, is getting. But I'm gonna try to make everything look good at the best we can at all, possible cost. And that's what we done last year, we did it, but we wound up incurring a lot of comp time because it was just me and Larry. There wasn't nobody else there, so sometimes we was working 12 hours a day ourselves. And we got 7 days a week that we're having to take care of, at 12 hours.
So you're saying that one full-time and two part-time people are gonna take care of both parks?
Two full-time, we have two full-time,
You have
he and
Me
Larry.
and
are
you and
full-time.
Larry, two full-time and one part-time is gonna take care of both of these parks and keep them up
If-
to
if-
standard.
Yeah, if we don't continue to have a lot of flood damage and stuff that pulls us out away from the mowing, we have to, that's really what gets into our time, is when we wind up having these floods and we have this stuff that we gotta go back and fix. And also, we've done some more projects along that I'll go into detail about that I don't know if you all were even aware of or not, that we've done, like we put in a new playground and we've actually put in 2 tractor trailer loads of mulch that we actually just, had to pretty much put in a wheelbarrow and take a bucket for the park. We actually done a tractor trailer load of mulch for St. Clair Park also. Just trying to get to where the mulch depth was correct and just where I thought it just looked a lot better. Cause the mulch had been in there for years, was black, and it really wasn't very, very, very deep in itself. You may come in one day and you may have to saw your way into the park to be able to get into it. So, we got to keep the trees solid as they fall. We try to get them up out of the way.
John,
Yes, sir.
is it possible to use any of the trustees?
See, in the past, when I was actually over the inmate work crew, we spent a tremendous amount of time up at Overland Park. Basically, what I've done every year is we would take the inmates up there as far as the hiking trails. See, the hiking trails, we would take the inmates up there and we would clear those out every year, sometimes twice a year when I was there. That's something that me and Larry just went through once and done. Since this last flood come at Easter, there's actually a bunch of trees done fell again. So we're gonna have to go back through and try to do that once again also.
Do they just not have inmates that can do that, or do they?
I think at the time, I know that once I had left, they had hired another individual, and that for a period of time, they haven't had anybody. I know that they have just rehired somebody, cause actually they come up to the park, the other day, and I actually talked to them, but, as far as how much, we'll be able to get done, I've actually put in a request, and I'm just waiting to see,
So there's a possibility that we
maybe a
will get
possibility.
some inmate help.
But we haven't had any in a year.
But we
That's
haven't
what
had
I'm
it
saying,
yet.
but.
But
is
I
there-
have put in the request, and I actually put in a request, here a while back, and they said they were just not gonna be doing a whole big lot for a while, so.
Okay. And this $12,000, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm just,
You're
Randall.
fine, go ahead.
this $12,000, will that just do for one?
That is not, I don't have the budget right here in front of me, I do, but that is actually just for one part-time, one part-time individual.
Also, later, if we get inmate help, we can always reduce the hours back on part-time. We're not obligated.
It's
Work
just
on
there in case we need it. I mean,
Right.
one flood can cause a major disaster that 3 men cannot clean up. And this year, that's all we've had is 2 men up until April, and then we got a part-time, gentleman, but, you see those pictures of all the, we lost a bridge, the trees fall, they rush through the creek, they come down, they get jammed up in the concrete. It's a miracle we didn't lose that other concrete bridge. If you see that pile of the water, nothing stops water, no.
And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, and it's been a learning experience for me. To have 2 parks, and this is just me, and to allow for all these circumstances that you come in, and if you wanna do special projects, like, I wanted to rebuild this playground, I wanted to put some new stuff into the park. You're gonna be taken away from a lot of your time doing your maintenance to try to do these projects. And it would be nice if we did have some extra help, just if you wanted to, you know, I've got a list, I'll go down through here and just tell you some of the things that we've done, like if you wanted to remodel a bathroom or something other, you know, you're gonna have to pull away from something to get this done with just two individuals. And a lot of stuff that you do, and in my opinion, is, you need two people there. You know, if you're doing something and just me with a chainsaw or something that's dangerous, being by yourself could be, you know, something, if somebody gets hurt or something, you're back there in the mountain, nobody knows nothing about it. To me, I think some of this stuff that you're gonna be doing, you need two people to be there just for a safety reason.
How much have we reduced this budget? How much from last year?
Over last year, with the $12,000, it's still, you know, last year was 185, 714, this year is 172, so it's still over $10,000, so less than last year.
And if y'all got the time, I mean, I would just like to go down through here and just, you know, kind of explain some of the things that we have done this year. We can just kind of see some of the projects that we have done and let you kind of take a look at some of them.
Under this 168, total 168, am I missing something? I thought we agreed that this, it says personnel, temporary personnel, general maintenance clerk. What's the reservation clerk doing?
Well, that should be taken out of there. When Eric gave me the printout for this, he had removed that. The reservation clerk is in the office now. So that's just left over from, that's just something that's there that, from last year or a previous budgets.
So that's, on this one, it's been taken out, on the one that was, that she said.
The spreadsheet that I
On the
prepared.
spreadsheet, it's not on there.
But so that ain't gonna release any money in that code? I mean, was there money in there for reservation clerk?
There wasn't last year. We passed the budget last year. We already decided to move the reservations to the county mayor's office. So this,
This budget last year was 4,000. 7,000, I'm sorry, $7,318. This year you got 12,000. I don't understand why we're going up on that.
now, if you will remember, and see, that's where this printout is not always accurate, because it reflects things that have been in the budget previously. If you will remember, Chrissy, when she worked at the park, was considered a reservation clerk, and she also had, it was a seasonable, maybe?
Seasonal.
Is that how they consider
Right,
it?
but she's no longer
She
here,
was
my
a
secretary
seasonable
does it now.
employee, and she was able to draw, unemployment when her
Right.
season ended. So we no longer have that, we just have money in there for an employee,
Right.
a part-time employee.
Yeah.
There's a $5,000 increase, I guess that's where I was concerned.
Well, there was from this line last year, but you don't have that other line,
You don't have that other line in there now.
that's seasonable, it's gone, so.
The seasonal one's gone. You just
So
want,
it just
run through
moved
that,
up.
yeah, that's
Was it
gone.
moved up to the missed cost code?
Yeah, we just put all the cost in that 168.
No.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Talley? If you'd like for me to go back and pull the budget,
You want me to bring him in?
if you want to,
No.
You wanna see this one? Okay, this is one.
we can look at the budget sheet from, the previous years, the book, and that shows you how it was broken down differently. There was a seasonable
Yeah.
help line, there was a reservation clerk line, and there was a substantial amount, a lot more than it is now.
A lot of those, lines and descriptions have been taken out because we didn't use them.
I've got last year's budget,
Yeah.
so I'll go back and look
Yeah.
at it.
If you could look at the year before that, that's where you would see all of that other stuff that we're talking about now. It wasn't in last year's budget, but it was in the year before.
Year before.
Got taken from us to do.
Okay.
Okay. Which I had a few questions based off of the budget, proposed budget myself, so Ms. Davis, if anybody else has any questions, we'll go ahead and do them, but, if not, I'd like to, give Ms. Davis here to preside so I can ask my questions. Okay.
Okay.
That way keeps me.
Do we have any other questions on the budget, proposed budget?
Okay.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I've got a few, Ms. Linda, and I was just going off of the print off that Ms. Davis provided to us a couple weeks back. One of the questions I've got, line number 169, the part-time park personnel, $12,755. The notation is that it's moved to the park supervisor salary. So the $12,755 under line 166, the budget request is $34,643. So if I'm looking at it right, if we're moving 169 to include it with line 166, would that put Mr. Young's salary at $47,398?
No, his salary is $34,643, and to be able to answer that question, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to look at that. I don't-
Yeah, I think it's a typo.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
And it may be something that was in there from the previous year's budget?
Yeah.
Because we just go back and change
Because
the
we
amount.
moved, remember we moved that was, what was it, we moved it, I think that's a typo, I don't think that was erased out of there.
Yes, that just needs to be moved. See, it was $20,755, and then we reduced that to 12, and we moved some of that up here, so this notation should have just been removed.
Okay, so we're
We
still
just cheat a
keeping-
little bit and use last year's spreadsheet and just make the corrections to it, so that should have been out. You see what I'm saying? It was 20, we reduced it to 12, and we took what was there and moved some of it up here
Okay,
to offset it. It was no new money, it just got moved.
okay, so we're still gonna have that slot, 12,755 for.
That's what we did last year's budget, that's what we're gonna do this year, but we're asking for an additional $12,000 per part-time
There. Okay.
here.
On that one.
Yes, we didn't ask for it here, you didn't see that on the spreadsheet. We had to send this, we have to have this budget in so early that, things happen the time you present it to Eric and have it finished and actual budget hearings. So we've had this major flood in the park, and Larry and John have had to work over a lot, and they have a lot of comp time, and
I'm not privy to that sheet, I don't know where it came from.
This one, it came off the computer, she sent it by email.
Sorry,
Okay, one of the other questions I've got, the 2 cell phones for the full-time employees, would that be for Mr. Young and Mr. Laster?
yes.
Those 2 people? Okay, going down to, the line number 39, account number 415, the electricity.
Mhm.
It's budgeted at $8,000. That way I calculate that comes to be $666 per month. So what do we have at the parks, the two parks, where we would be using $666 per month average for?
Do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
The biggest thing, Mr. Barrett, is those bathroom heaters. They are expensive to run.
Okay.
Basically, in the house, also, we had it down low just to keep the water from freezing. That was actually inside the house, itself. But we had the thermostat cut down the zone, as low as actually what it would run.
Okay.
Pretty much basically, the bathroom heaters are the biggest expense. I know that even that had been, just when I've been in meetings in the past, that was one of the things that was asked is, cause it was so expensive to keep those bathrooms heated in wintertime. So there's, just stone and block and there's nothing, and there's a little, you've got the heaters that goes to each bathroom, and then you've got a little small 110 heater that's in the hallway where all the water lines and stuff is at. And that thing, runs continuously where the water lines is at in the dead of winter. And my guess is that is what is so expensive is that little heater that's actually in the middle of the bathrooms in between the block walls while the water lines are and everything are at.
Yes, there's also, how many security lights do we have at Laurel Run?
I think that we've got 11 of our total.
So 11 security lights at Laurel Run, and then we have 4 at St. Clair. 4 at St. Clair. Now, let me tell you this about St. Clair. We were looking at the electricity, cause we expected a big reduction with no one living in the trailer. So John and I were saying, why are we spending so much money? So we discovered that in the concession stand at St. Clair Park were still a freezer and a drink cooler, and they were running. They belonged to the fire department that had used the concession stand, but the concession stand hasn't been open in well over a year, probably 2 years. So we called the fire department and asked them if they still had food in there or whatever, if they could just come and move their coolers out of the concession stand. And we disconnected that electricity. So that was running sometimes $50 a month.
So actually, we did our met them when we got their stuff out, and we actually cut the power to that. So we actually don't have any power to it now.
So after the budget was prepared, we found some substantial savings, but you won't see those reflected until next year.
Do we have, security cameras at either park that's operational?
We have them at St. Clair Park.
Okay.
That's the only ones that we actually have security cameras at this time.
Do we have plans for security cameras at?
We can't
Well,
discuss
park?
the security right now.
Would they be in the budget? Potentially?
We can talk to you.
Potentially, okay. Okay, I know in past years where I've been on the Parks Committee that there was a issue with vandalism at St. Clair's Park out there. Has that leveled off, or is that still an issue?
That has leveled off tremendously. Actually, the biggest thing that we've had that's happened is pretty much just in the restroom, just toilet paper. And that's pretty much all the vandalism. Every now and then they'll break it to be able to get to it. But other than that, as far as anything being vandalized or tore up, we've been very fortunate since I've been here that we've not had anything vandalized.
And I think I've only maybe got one more question. And I got to apologize. I'm looking off of the information that Sarah Davis sent me, and instead of looking at what was passed out today. But if I looked and understood, the information that Ms. Davis put out in coming up, working with, you, Mr. Young, for the budget, the proposed budget for 2020 and 2021, proposed budget is $160,514, which does not include the 12,000.
That's correct.
The way the budget format was presented, it's based off of budgets from 2018-19 year, 2019-20 year, and then this year. And
That's so you could see, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Barrett, but that's so you could see where we've come from three years. That's 3 years worth of budgets. That's so you can see what it was 3 years ago, since Mr. Young has been here and the folks don't live there. I felt like you needed to see, 3 years worth of budgets to get a clear understanding of what it was before compared to what it is now.
Yeah. And that would be correct, Ms. Davis. The question I've got is you're comparing budgets to budgets, and you don't actually get the actuals until you go to the last page. There, it shows the actual, if I understand it correctly, it shows the actual expenditures for 2018-2019 to be $220,000 and $504. The next year, actual expenditures is $160,309, and then we have the proposed budget for $160,514. So basically, I guess the point, it's good to look at budgets, but to access, I guess, to really look at it dollars to dollars and, apples to apples, you need to see the actual expenditures. Overall, if I'm interpreting the numbers that I'm seeing, the proposed budget roughly, not including the 12,000, is within $205 of the budget that's proposed is within $205 of last year's actual expenditures.
Last year's actual estimated expenditures, yes.
Okay.
Last year, 2019, 2020, we were budgeted $185,000. We're only expecting to spend $162,000 of that. That's why our budget this year is close to what we expect to spend from last year.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
extremely close.
160,000. It's extremely close budget versus not including the 12,000.
Right.
But, I guess for me personally, I would rather have seen actual line item, actual expenditures as opposed to proposed budgets for,
Okay.
previous years. But,
I was just trying to show what the budgets have been in the past 3 years, but I will take that into consideration when I prepare that spreadsheet next year.
it's close, to what it was last year. But, I think that's all the questions I had myself.
Mr. Tanner?
I hate to come to a meeting and have 15 different sheets. One has one thing, one has another. I've got the sheet here, I do not have the proof, I went through my emails, I don't have anything from you. I don't know what date you sent out the email, but for some reason, I'm having a hard time getting emails from Sarah.
That's not a problem, we can check our server, everything stays on it, nothing's deleted.
Yeah, I wish somebody would, but on the phone, it only goes back to, April the 2nd, I believe it was. There's nothing on there.
This was sent out a long time ago. When we,
The color graph was sent April 30th.
No, I should have it, it's saying April 30th.
Do you have that email? Does it
Yeah, he's
show
got it.
Mr. Talley's email address in there is receiving it? It should show everybody it was emailed to.
Alright, but anyway, I've got a sheet here, that says budget, and I'm assuming, because you got here 160, and then 172,514, I'm assuming that's 12,000.
Yes,
What
sir.
is the budget?
Right now, we're requesting the 172,514.
That's what mine shows, but Jeff was saying he had 160 something other.
That was prior to us adding this $12,000.
The 172,514 is the correct,
That is
because
correct.
this one did not reflect, the one that we got on the email did not reflect the $12,000.
Okay,
What she's done, she's just added the 12,000 to 160.
right, well, I assumed that's
Yeah.
what it was.
And the reason for that is because, again, we had the floods, we had to have additional
Yeah, I
help.
understand that.
And we said, we've gotta prepare for this next year.
Yeah.
Because he and Larry have been working 12 hours a day, they're full-time people, of course, they accrue comp time, and that has to come off. And we have to cover a part 7 days a week, 12 hours a day.
What day did you say that was sent?
April 30th.
Guess what? Mine goes to April 27th. But I'm sure I got it home. I'll recheck it out. And I apologize, Sarah, if you,
That's okay. We will check your
I
email
thought you
address.
said a couple of weeks ago, and
Based on, this year's proposed budget, and the spending as of today or last week or whatever, are we basically in line?
Yes, sir, we're way behind, we're not spending all the money that we were budgeted for. And John's gonna get into some of the things that we've done this year a little later after we approve the budget, to tell you, or you can go ahead and get into that right now.
Let me ask a question. I'm worried about this part-time stuff, if we don't get some people, you're not into the major part of mowing and weed eating and repairing, and with the damage we've had with this pandemic we've had and everything. I'm really worried about 2 full-time and a part-time person gonna be enough up there. I'm not saying that you all can't do the job, but if we don't get some trustees or somebody up there, what's gonna happen when you all get overloaded? Or all 3 of you gonna end up working 12 hours a day, which I know the part-time can't,
Yeah,
but what's gonna happen there?
that's kind of.
We can't work them like that. We
Yeah.
can
That's
send them
what I'm
home.
saying, you can't work them like that. You can't work a man 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
240 is the most comp you can get. That's right.
Is that right? Is it still
240?
240?
Yeah.
And see,
And
that's,
at that time, they gotta go home, and the park's
Yeah.
gotta close.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And how do you close Laura Run Park a day a week? I'm not
I
for that
don't wanna
at
be the
all.
one to pick the day.
and that's what we've got into, where we're just having to work so much that we get the comp time in, and it just makes it tough.
I have people in my district that complain to me that currently, they complain now because of the hours of the park. you know. They like to see it close at, you know,
Midnight.
10 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, instead of,
We're at
Saturday.
8 o'clock right now,
Wow.
from 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the evening now, so we're at 7 days a week.
park hours are, you know, that'll be a hot topic.
Well, what I'm worried about is something major happens up there and you've got to pull 3 people to do one thing. You're gonna let the mowing, the park's gonna not look as good. The mowing's gonna go down. If you've got 4 things, if that bathroom tears up, and you have to put 3 people in there to work on it, and you don't have anybody out in the park doing anything else, and you're using all your comp time up on that.
Well, you're
I'm
right.
worried about $12,000, and I know we need to be really frugal this year with the money. I know what kind of a situation we're in, but, you know, she's took 25,000 out of there already, out of last year's budget. She's decreased the budget $25,000. And, you know, I'm not for raising the budget, I'm not for all this, but I'm worried about if people are not gonna have anything to do this summer, but go walk in the park. I'm looking at the people in Hopkins County, what they're gonna do. If we have to close the park down 1 day a month, I'm not for that. I'm not for spending a lot of money, but we need to work out something that we can, if we had an emergency, we could pull somebody in. You know, I'm not saying put them out there, everybody out there 7 days a week, but we need some little something in there that we can put somebody in there without having to wait to go to the commission to get the money. So if the 12,000 is gonna use one up, what do y'all think? I'm out here today, I'm wore out with this pandemic, and I'm worried about closing parks that people are gonna need, cause they're not gonna get to go on vacation, you know?
I guess, you know, for me, one of the questions would be, you know, we're not getting the work crew
Yeah.
from the jail. Is that due to, the virus, or is there a issue or something?
I don't know the answer to that, just to be honest with you, Mr. Barrett.
Okay.
Who would that be up to? Sheriff?
Larry's back there not saying a thing. What do you think, Larry?
I saw 2 young men this morning picking up, trash on Lindsbury Road. I don't know who they were, I didn't see any deputies, anything with them, but they had on orange vests. That's all I know on that subject.
Well, as chairman, would this committee want me to go talk to the sheriff and see if there's, see if he can help us out with that? You know,
I say yes.
I've already talked to the sheriff, and the problem was before the coronavirus, but the coronavirus made it worse. He don't have the amount of prisoners in there he had before, and, I mean, he can't correct that, so.
No.
That's not a problem that's gonna go away anytime soon.
okay.
So we're stuck.
And you can't wait for months and months to get a prisoner, and then they may last 2 or 3 days, and then they're released, and there you are again.
So we're basically stuck. And if we have an emergency up there, what are we gonna do? And I appreciate Sarah for cutting this budget like she has, but this budget is so tight. Right now, there's not even I've looked at this thing. I sit down and looked at it at night when I couldn't sleep. There's no wiggle room in here. If something major happens up there, we're in trouble. I like the budget. You know, this is the way I like to see a budget, but there's no wiggle room.
Yeah, it budgeted right down,
To the penny.
right down to it. I mean, there was 165,14 budget, proposed budget, and you go right back to last year's actual, 160,309. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's $205 difference.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't sharpen a pencil no tighter than that. I mean, you know, that's not counting, you know, 12, but, yeah, I mean, $205, you can't buy a lawnmower tire, 4 tires for $205 for a lawnmower. I mean, that's squeaky tight.
We still got $13,000 less than last year though.
13,000 less, we still got 13,000 less than we had last year after putting that 12,000 in there.
Yeah.
And I'm not for spending money. I know what I'll spend on my house last to get it sanitized because Jack's freaking out over this, and I'm not for spending money, my bank account's squeaked. But we need to do something. I don't wanna see, like I said before, I don't wanna see this park closed down a day a week, cause these people this summer not gonna have anything to do.
Even there, the shelter reservations, that's budgeted for about roughly $2,000 less than the actuals from last year. So, and you know, the way the virus is, I don't know if we will recover that even. I mean, you know, it's, this is May already.
Yeah. And how long was the park closed? How long did we have it closed?
2.5 weeks.
2.5 weeks.
That's just by memory.
So that was revenue gone right there, 2.5 weeks worth. It was probably already,
We've had some that actually has canceled, you know, that we had, and we've even had some that's after that because of the virus. That's just like in the 1st of May and stuff. We've had a few of those that's canceled also, just on account of the virus. They said they rescheduled a lot of them to go out to a later date or something, but just on the start, it's gonna be slow, I think.
I said all I need to say, I guess. I don't know what to.
What would be the recommendation of this committee in regards to the budget? Does the committee want to send it on to the budget committee, or do you want to request more for the parks, or?
Jeff, I got a question.
Okay.
If something did happen, like, we don't know what would happen, but if something did happen, would they have to come back to the committee before they approve something or get it done?
Probably.
And Jim, probably help me out with this. As mayor, do you have, like, in the case of an emergency or something that comes up, do you have some flexibility to approve something like on an emergency manager?
We do as of right now, but you gotta be really careful with that. And right now, we don't have an emergency to pull, but I don't feel like it's important enough to pull like that. But yeah, the order's still in place. If we need it, we can do it.
Ma'am.
That's your last resort though.
If we have major problems at the park, if we have major flooding and things like that, most of the cost of that would be labor, just getting it cleaned up, just getting the trees up, getting the trees out of the road, cleaning out the ditches and that creek that runs right through that park, it brings down all the debris from the mountain and brings it down in the park. So when we have floods, the most cost is the labor to get it cleaned up, to get it safe for people to get back in the park. That's our big cost, is labor, and that's why we're asking for this.
Did you say, how much did you say she had saved us? but we still have 13,000 after that.
For a rainy day fund.
Okay. I'm going to ask that we put 5,000 more in the part-time. And this is the way I want it worded, part-time to be used if we need it for an emergency. Has to be an emergency, you know. If you get overwhelmed, if it comes a big storm and you lose 20 trees, you can hire somebody to come in and help you. You know, I don't, yes,
Well, the problem we have with that, who are you gonna find to come out at the one time? It's, they're not there.
I just know that what I don't want is that money spent if it's not needed. You know what I'm saying?
I got you, but now come over to the other side and try to hire somebody
That's true.
one time. See, nobody realizes our economy was really good, and all of a sudden we took a dive. Well, there's still not a lot of people around here out of a job.
Right.
And the ones that are out of a job were actually drawing more than they were making it work. So you're not gonna be able to get those people either, so.
Well,
I know it's,
how would you suggest that we, you know,
it's tough getting a part-time person. It's tough getting a full-time person, what the county pays. It really is. But getting a part-time person is really difficult.
Ms.
How
Davis,
long did you look, John?
One time,
Months.
I even went and talked to college kids that through the churches and everything, just trying to get, you know, somebody for, and most of them, you know, they can't work that limited hours. Most of them's got a full-time job or something. It's just hard to find somebody.
Most kids don't work now.
To work, you know, part-time.
What do you pay to start off with for a full-time person?
What is it, $9.50, is that right?
Somewhere close to 10, I think. I ain't exactly sure. Just
our
off the top.
part-time employees, $10.50 an hour.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
Part-time to.
Part-time, $10.50 an hour.
10, 50.
After they've been there.
Is it, now, where do they start at, Sarah? At part-time?
$10.50.
Oh,
Our employees at $10.50. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Don?
that's correct.
Yes, and after 6 months, he
After
would move to
six-
$11.
Yeah, next 6 months.
And then that would be set at $11.
and that's usually a seasonal job?
We call it a part-time. We usually
Right.
don't need people in the winter unless John and Larry's on vacation, but
In comp time.
yes.
Okay.
what would you suggest? You know, we need something to fall back on when something happens. Because we've had two floods up there this year.
Well, you know, we're asking for the 12,000. Will we spend that? Probably not, but it'll be there if we do, if we need it.
So you don't feel that we need to put the 5,000 in there for?
5,000's not gonna help. We won't go find anybody. I mean, we appreciate it, but that would be impossible.
Well, what if we took 5 or 10 and added it to that, what was it, 22, or 12? Add it to that, and basically you still would have it as an emergency fund. They're not gonna go out and spend it just because
Right.
they got it. Instead of 12,000, you will add.
Well, the final say will be up to the budget committee anyway. All we're doing is just
Right.
making that, but I'm just worried about closing that park a day a week.
Well, I'd say make it 20,000 to 12 and then with a clear understanding that it's there to use if we had to hire extra help or something, but I'm like Jim, for $5,000, you're not gonna get.
Not gonna get anything.
I had a tree cut down, it cost $1,200 just to cut a little tree down.
We paid, what, 2,500 yesterday, didn't we?
It was $850 for that one.
But the other one,
What would happen And just looking at this budget, what would happen, like, for example, 799, other capital outlay, there in the notes it says unexpected projects and repairs, will only be used in the event of flooding or natural disasters.
Right.
Could you put it right there, and would that cover it?
You could, we would have to do a budget amendment and move it out. And they usually don't like for us to spend money unless it's in that line, but if it were an emergency, we could do that. We would have to move it from this, other capital outlay into part-time salary, but that would be a possibility. But that other capital outlay is our, like,
And we've not put
safety
anything,
net.
we've not put anything in other capital outlay. It's sitting there by itself with nothing in it. And if you have,
We're not spending anything out of that. I put $2,000 down because of the bridge, and we're gonna get into that a little bit later. But we will probably not spend any money out of that $799, just because it's for emergency and
Right.
special projects. But if you wanted to put 5,000 there and indicate that 5,000 of that would be for salaries, if an
necessary,
emergency.
Can't do that,
we can do
Can't.
that. You can't do that.
can't do that. Can't pay salary out of miscellaneous.
No.
It would have to be moved. You would
You'd
have to do a
move it.
budget amendment.
Well, what you're gonna have to get into there is, you're not gonna be able to hire a person in time to fix your problem.
Right.
You're gonna have to contract it out. You got a tree problem up there, you're gonna have to contract tree service. You're not gonna be able to hire anybody all that time, the tree will rot by the time you find somebody.
That's the truth.
So you're either gonna use contracted services or county labor.
Can I say this? I feel like if you look at what our budget was, what we had budgeted last year and what our estimated expenditures are, we went through a flood this year. I think you will find that John Young is a good steward of your money. He has not spent a dime up there that hasn't been needed. And I feel like if you could have enough faith in him to know that he wouldn't use this salary unless it was a great need, that you could just put it in the salary line. I think this budget shows that he's taking care of your money, and he's taking care of that park.
I'm for
I'm sorry.
whatever.
Yeah, I believe you had a motion.
Put 5,000 more into the part-time, but they're saying 5,000.
So you're gonna make a motion to put 5,000 into, 169
Part-time.
part-time? Okay,
So that'd make it 17.
make
is
it
that what-
17 to 755.
Yeah.
With that line
Would
right
that
there.
help any?
Yes,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
she wanted to know if that would help,
What,
to add $5,000 to that,
to what?
To the part-time.
to the part-time.
Make it 17,000.
That way, if
You're not gonna be able to hire another person.
No, but if you.
But-
And the person we've got now is not gonna be able to work that much.
If you add the 12 and 5.
If you add the
use it.
12 and the 5, we could hire
Use
2
it
people
whenever you
part-time, and we could really work them
I
hard
mean, if
if
you're gonna
there
go,
was an
well,
emergency.
the person we got now can go to school, you don't have time to work. You know, if you're gonna go that route, then just go ahead and do away with the part-time employee and make it a full-time position. But see, then you get into benefits, and
Yeah.
I would,
I know these are tough decisions for you guys, and it's a bad time, but, hey, it's your choice.
I was just trying to figure out some ways to help them with their comp time, but I'm still leaning to the fact that our budget's gonna be as tight as,
It's gonna be
it's
worse
gonna
than
be
tight.
worse than tight.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I don't wanna spend money that we don't have, but I don't want them to,
But it's come down to this though, in order to stay legal with comptrollers and everybody else, we're gonna have to start letting these guys off.
yeah,
But they're right there at the point. And the only thing we can do there is close the park. And I honestly don't wanna do that. That
I
park
don't wanna
needs,
close the park either.
right now, we could operate that park from 6 a.m. till midnight, and there'd be people there the whole time.
Well,
But I mean,
If you got
it's
Yes,
tough choices.
If you got $12,000 to use for part-time, if you had another 5,000, the original 12,000 run out, you'd still have 5,000 for part-time.
But he can't work that much.
he can't work
He's
that
going
long.
back to school now.
But you can get another person.
Not for $5,000.
Part-time person, full-time. Not full-time, but.
I challenge you to find somebody for me for $5,000. I told him to find me somebody for $5,000. I did respectable.
Can we not get two part-time guys?
That's what we're wanting.
That would make it 12 and 5, 17. 17,775, is that right? 17,7.
Well, add 5 to 12, 17,000,
12.
and then make your budget,
That's 8,500 each.
if you don't get it in there now, you won't get it, I'm just gonna tell you right up front.
Yeah.
So you'd have a budget of, 177, 514. If we did that. That's what I say, recommend, I might could find you a guy. He's retired from TVA, and he's looking for a part-time job. Now, the only bad thing about that is he'd have to drive for Laurel Run.
Keep what?
He'd have to drive up to Laurel Run from Bowles Gap. Now, he's trying to get on at the road department too.
See, I've talked to some people, and that's kind of like one of the things we've been into, if they live far away,
Yeah.
no more hours than they, you know, to be, you gotta space it out, no more hours than they're gonna be able to work a week, it's not feasible for, because of the gas bill, they're, you know, not gonna be worth their. That would be, you know, that's what I've done run into with people
Yeah.
before, that's good people that I thought, you know, they just, it's not feasible for them to drive that far.
Well, that's up to you. I made that motion, if they can use it.
Okay.
I'm gonna go
Okay.
back and repeat that motion because
Take out the emergency.
take out the emergency, so that's gonna be to put $5,000 in the part-time salary, an
That would
additional
make-
5,000.
Yeah, and that would make it 17,000.
Okay,
I know it's not gonna help a lot.
17,445.
Yeah, 17,445. I know that's not gonna help a lot. And if it comes right down to it, we'll just bite the bullet and close.
Pick a
Close.
day.
That's all we can do.
Okay.
But I'm worried about the money this year, so.
So now we're saying that line item be $21,465.
Yeah, with that part-time, with the
Yeah.
part-time St. Clair personnel.
21,465.
I'll second that motion.
And that still will make this budget come in
Same as last year. No,
less than 13,000,
5,000 less than last
5,000 less than last year, something like that.
year. 7,000.
So you're at
7,000,
177,500, about 514.
come in 7,000 less than last year,
Okay,
so.
got a motion that's been made, got a motion that's been seconded.
who was the second, I'm sorry?
Raymond.
Yeah, Mr. Jesse. Is everybody clear on the motion? Ready to vote? Okay. Ms. Sarah, if you will call the roll, we'll vote.
Okay, Jeff Barry,
I'm gonna say yes.
Larry Quantz,
Yes.
Linda Davis,
Yes,
Craig Jesse,
Yes.
Donnie Town.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we have 5 yeses.
Commissioner Chairman, all this does is just, we're just recommending the budget. We recommended this, it'll be up to the personnel committee for the final, or the budget committee.
Okay,
Final decision.
okay. Does the committee now want to vote to pass this on to the budget committee?
So moved.
Okay, got a motion, got a second? All in favor? Aye. Likewise? Okay, on to the budget committee then. Okay, moving on, we'll go to, number 6, update on the park projects.
Yeah, I just kind of would like to go with y'all with some of the things that, that we had kind of talked about that we would like to get done with, oh, I'm sorry. Can y'all hear me okay now? Alright. One of the things that we've done that I was kind of proud of was we designed and constructed the new playground up there at Laurel Run Park. I don't know if anybody has seen it yet or not, but it consisted of 4 swings, a slide, and 2 seesaws. And that was something, one of the first things that we did whenever I first started up there. We had to lay it out and get it leveled out and do some tree cutting and so forth and so on. And a lot of kids seem to enjoy it pretty good because it's kind of a different slide that's got some little curves in it. So they use it a lot now because it's been something new to the park. Also, as I said earlier, we actually put 2 tractor trailer loads of playground mulch in there. We had to put a whole tractor trailer load into the new playground, and then also we went ahead and put a tractor trailer load into the old existing playground because the mulch was all packed down and it was black, and we went ahead and done that. When I got to looking, when I first come up there, some of the chains on the swings on the old playground, some of those were getting worn and rusted up real bad, so we placed all the new chains on the swings at the park. We actually installed a new fence around the tennis court and the basketball court. The old one had received some damage on it, and it was rusting up and starting to look pretty bad. So we actually got that installed and put up in place, so we got a new good looking fence around it. Also, we got a new gate sign for Orland Park. We put up a new one up. The other one, it was bent and actually wound up getting broke and had some damage to it, so we actually wound up putting a new gate up that looks tremendously well.
At no cost to us,
Yeah.
not a
That's
tractor trailer hit it,
It
and broke
hit
it, so they
So
paid
they took
100%
care
for a new sign.
Also, the house, when I first went up there, I noticed that the house was leaking bad in one of the rooms, and it had actually done damage to one of the walls. We actually, what was the ridge cap on it wasn't small enough, the tin was coming out, so water was running in behind it. We actually had that took care of and put new ridge cap on and actually turned the tin around. It had actually been put on backwards. So we took care of that problem, so that stopped any more wear or damage on it that what we had.
What are we gonna do with that house?
Guess that's up to the mayors.
Well, no, what do you want to do with it?
I don't know. It's going downhill sitting there, and we need to do something with it. Maybe that'd be a way.
We don't have enough labor to do anything with it.
I agree.
We try to keep it up. I mean, we go around and we sweep and we mop it, and, we try to open the windows up and let it air out, so we try not to let it,
Keep it.
we try to, with what time we've got, we try to do the best we can on it.
I just think we need to try to come up with some idea on that. I don't know what it would be, Jim, but we need to try to come up with something, move it or something.
And the river erosion project that we had, the money that you all had on the grant, we got that took care of since I've been up there, as far as our money would go. We still have rock left over, because we had enough rock to do from one end of the park to the other end of the park, but the money that we had on the grant, wasn't getting over near getting the whole riverfront, but we did get accomplished with what money that we did have. So we got that took care of. remodeled the men's restroom this year, we repainted it, and, put new grab bars on the specs, and we done some of the handicap accessible stuff to it that we needed to do. In the park, when I first come there, all the signs like, children that play and keep your pets and everything on a leash and no dogs and all those have been deteriorated and they was just crumbling and coming apart. I put all new signs up and replaced all those, just where it looked neater. And there's stuff, the shelter, we actually got the plywood to do the shelters. We've got one of them completed, that's the only time that we've been able to squeeze in, but we do have one of them that we took all the old plywood out, hauled it off and replaced new plywood and new strips on it. Haven't got it painted yet, but we have got that done. I ordered 6 new grills. Those grills are in bad shape. When I come here, they was holes all in the barbecue grills. That's one of my top concerns, that the people actually come to me and ask that if you do anything, we need to replace those grills. This year's budget, I've done half of them. I've done 6. So I actually have those ordered. They have to be specially made. I priced them from several different places. I'm having them made out of 1/4-inch steel, something that should last for years. During this pandemic, like everything else, the place that doesn't pour, they started shutting down. So they give me first ship date of May the 5th. I talked to them actually today, just try to update you all. They saying now that it's scheduled to ship on May the 11th. So as quick as we get those in, we'll have to dig the holes for those and concrete those in. But that'll be half of all the shelters. If we get those 6 done, that'll be half of it. And like I say, pretty much all of them, some of them you can get by with, but most of them had some tremendously large holes in them. That's one of the projects that we got done. Right now, we're in the process of building this new bridge. We had to dig it by hand up there, and it ain't nothing but rock. But we haven't got the footers dug. It took us about a day and a half to get the footers dug on both sides of the creek. Nothing don't happen. We plan on trying to pour it tomorrow and set the poles. The reason Miss Sarah was talking about the money, we had some Eagle Scouts come up and volunteered to supply the materials and actually take care of that part. If we would set the logs and concrete the base and do the footers and everything, because that's gonna be the hard part of the work, which I've actually met with this young man and his dad several times. And his dad said they would take care of the expense of all the materials for the bridge if we would just, I've done got the poles and everything, we got those up there, so hopefully we'll get those concreted in tomorrow. And hopefully by the end of next week, when he gets there, we hopefully will have the bridge completed and back up and took care of. Yard swings that we have that everybody enjoys along the river, when the flood got up this time, it destroyed those. Basically hit, on one of them it tore the poles down, they're actually laying on the ground. The other ones it jarred them so much where stuff had hit them that it actually jarred the concrete loose. I actually, on the rainy days, we took the swings to the garage, and we've actually painted those and put new chains on them. But we just haven't had time to get the poles pulled up and re-dig new holes and re-pour them in concrete and everything. But we do have the swings repaired and new chains put on those, the ones that was along the river. So that's another project that we've been working on. We actually started hauling rock in it again. We actually brought in 12 dump truck loads of rock. The rock hadn't been, the year before, no rock had been put on the boat dock or anything, and we had graded it as much as we could, and it was full of holes. And where the creek got up so bad, it actually got up and washed about a 3-foot ditch on each side of the main bridge going over to the playground, where it just cut around the bridge where it was so high. So we had to put about 4 loads of rock just on that one section alone. So we got that took care of. As far as down at St. Clair, we put a whole tractor trailer load of mulch on that playground also. So that's all 3 playgrounds has got new mulch been added to them. And we had to repair the concrete pad, like I say, where the tree fell and hit, it broke one of the corners of it off. And pretty much, like I say, you've always got stuff, you've got trees falling constantly or something going on. So it keeps you busy, and it's been a learning lesson, and I appreciate and enjoy the opportunity that the mayor's give me to be able to do it, and then, and like I say, I know this rainy weather, and that's the part that I hate. Last year, you know, we strived to try to keep everything, but we wound up with all these other projects, so it was either quit mowing or work on these projects, one of the two. We just didn't have enough man hours to get it all accomplished in what time with two people. So,
Can I ask them a question?
Yeah.
The new road that we put in up there, how's it holding up to the entrance to the park? The road that
you talk about the one where it goes up to the park lot?
it
up
goes
to-
into the park.
Hey.
Oh, yeah, the
The
pavement,
pavement.
yeah, it's doing well. We've
Is it,
not had
I
no
figured
problem.
with all this rain and stuff, it might.
No, we've not had, the only thing we've had with it is, you know, we'd have mud. We'd have to take a tractor and a grader and grade the mud off of it, because we all the time have mudslides that have come off into it, but nothing major, or no damage to it. It's done well. And like I say, I'll try to answer any questions that you all have, if you want to ask about any
And
of
I've
the
got
projects.
one other one about this stream bank stabilization. Has that helped as far as the walking path, or are we still in?
It has. The only thing that, and this is just me, that I will say, before, when we had along the river, before we done this, you had about this much section that you had to weed eat. Now that we've done this, you've got probably about a 6 to 7 foot stretch all the way out the river that you have to weed eat by hand, because it's on a incline once they fixed it, and you can't get a lawnmower or anything on it, so you have to do all that by hand now. From before, we just have a little small section, now we got about 8 foot for all the way out the river bank now that you have to do by hand. So it's time consuming now, so it looks good and it looks nice, but just, you know, keeping the time to be able to get it all done is just the biggest thing.
Anybody else got any more questions on the, park projects on the update?
I was just gonna make one comment, if you don't mind, on that stream bank project. Of course, it didn't get completed totally. We still have, about $123,000 worth to do. But Miss Whitney Good's here today to talk to us about a grant opportunity that could potentially lead us to monies to help finish this. We have some rock there. I've still been in contact with Daniel Horn, who did the project before. He has spoke with TVA, and if TVA has some money hanging over at the end of their year that they can send our way, if you'll remember when we received those rock, before, $50,000 worth of rock came from TVA. It was last minute. They called, they had about 4 days left in their fiscal year budget. They said, if you can receive $50,000 worth of rock, we'll give it to you. And that could possibly happen again this year. That will help us on our cost for that stream bank project, but that's something we're still looking at, and that's why the rock is still there, because we may be able to find some more money, some more rock from TVA. We need the larger rock now. We have plenty of the smaller rock to finish the project, but the size that we're needing now from TVA is boulders.
That
Yeah.
side of the truck could.
Yeah, we need large rock now, and that's what we're hoping to get from them at the end. I've had some correspondence with them by email, and they have got us on their list. So if there's some funds left over, they can possibly help us out.
And you're saying that it would cost approximately $123,880.
Based on the cost of what we completed already,
Okay.
to
And that's,
complete the rest of it.
okay, is that including the rock, or is that with TVA giving us the rock?
That's including the rock.
Okay. So it wouldn't
So
be
if
that much.
TVA gave us some
Rock.
big boulders to go with the small rock, it would not be
It
that
would not
much.
be that much.
There's 1,176 feet left that is actively eroding.
Okay, I guess we're up to number 7.
Don't you wanna present that, or do you want me to? Better.
healthier Tennessee.
You have a
playground.
packet with you that says Hawkins County Laurel Road Park upgrades. This was from our grant that we received through the health department last year. After we installed the playground equipment, they put on our Facebook page a link that you could go in and fill out a survey. And that's what you have, and those are the results from that survey. There's a lot of good, information in here. That's what the people who are visiting the park have, went online, took the survey, and this is the feedback we've got. So it's a really good information on what the people would like to see at the park. There's suggestions on here. But this is what they do at the end of the park grant, is they have this survey. We spent every dime of that $20,000 too. And I have pictures that should be going around of all the playground equipment that
Okay, I gotta
$20,000
sign off
paid for.
because the battery's about to die.
And a piece of exercise.
If you're watching out
Yes,
there
a
live,
piece of exercise
that's why I'm getting ready to sign off because my battery's dying.